Hello and welcome to the 22nd video in Java programming. In this video we're going to talk about networking and how we can use Java to communicate between two different computers. In this video we're going to cover sockets, which establishes a connection between two different computers. We're going to cover inputs and output streams, which basically allows you to communicate between the different computers. And we're also briefly going to talk about ports and IP and how we can use them to establish the connection between the computers. I've created an image that shows how an application using sockets could work. In this case, we have two clients and one central server. The server contains a server socket object, which is what listens for connection to the server. And both of the clients contain a socket object, which we use to initiate a connection to the server. And in order to establish a connection successfully, the client have to know which IP the server is located at, and it also has to know which port it listens to. And in this video we are going to use the port 8080, and the IP is going to be something called localhost, which we use when the client and the server are on the same machine. Once we have established a connection between the client and the server, we can also create and retrieve something called input and output streams. And those streams are what we're using to send and retrieve messages between the client and the server. So I'm going to show you how the program will work once we're done with this video. The program consists of two classes, one client and one server. And each one of those classes have its own main method because we want to run them separately. So we want to be able to run each class on its own. So as you can see, in the video the server listens on the port 8080. So when the client tries to initiate a connection to the server, we have to define the IP and the port. As you can see in the client, we have localhost and we have the port 8080. So let's go ahead and run the server, and you can see below there that it says server, so we're running this class. And now let's just run the client too, and a message pops up where we will enter the message. And you can see we can switch between the two different programs that's running at the moment. Let's just send a message, hello server, and you can see that the server actually gets the message. As you see down there, it still says server, so we're still inside of that project. So while this is pretty basic so far, we're going to create more advanced examples later on. So let's get started with actual programming. First of all, we're going to create the two classes, the server and the client, and as I said before, they will each have their own main method. And we're also going to create a run method for both the client and server, which we're going to call immediately when the program starts. Let's create the run methods, and let's just create the object of the client and the server and just call the run method. And now for the server, we're going to create the server socket first of all, which is the object that listens for a connection. And we're going to listen on the port 8080, so when the client tries to talk to the server or establish a connection, it will have to send on port 8080. When we deal with sockets and server sockets, we usually have to, or we almost always have to, enclose the code in a try and catch statement, so we can catch eventual errors or exceptions that are being thrown. For example, if we lose a connection between the server and the client, we can handle it in a certain way. For example, tell the user that something went wrong. So let's just enclose it inside of the IO exception. And now we're going to want to retrieve a socket so we can actually send message to the client and the server. And we can receive a socket from the server by calling the accept method from the server socket. And it's basically that method that listens on the port, and it waits there until the client connects. And it will be stuck there forever if it doesn't connect, so we have to keep that in mind, that nothing will happen until we have had a client that connects. We are going to deal with this later on by having multiple threads, which will solve this problem. Alright, so now we have established a socket in the server, so let's create the input stream, which will allow us to receive messages that are being sent through the sockets. And in this case, we're going to create something called a buffered reader, which implements the input stream. So let's go ahead and create it by using buffered reader equals the new buffered reader. And then inside of the parentheses, we want to create a new input stream reader. And inside of those parentheses, for the constructor, we're going to call socket.getInputStream, which retrieves the input stream for the socket. There's a similar method called getOutputStream, which we're going to use on the client side to send messages. Now when we have the input stream, we're just going to create a string called res, which is going to store the messages that we retrieve. And because we don't want this to stop, we want the server to keep on listening all the time, we're going to create a while loop which reads the messages all the time. So what we're going to do inside of the while loop is to check if the message we retrieve is not null. That means that something has been sent. And we're going to do that by setting that res is equal to whatever we read on the line. So if res is not null, we will print out the message. Receive the message and then the actual message that was sent from client. And that's all we need to do on the server side for now. So we're going to move on and finish up the client side. So first of all, let's call for the initial connection by creating a socket. And in the new socket we want to put in first the IP of the server, and in this case it's going to be localhost. And then we want to put in the port, which we said before is 8080. They have to be the same on both the client and the server, otherwise it will not work. And because we have used localhost, this will only work on this machine if the server and the client are on the same machine. You could use a local area network IP, if you have the server on the same network as your computer. If you have the server on another network, you would have to use the external IP. I won't go into further detail in this video about the different kinds of IPs, but if you want to learn it now, you can go ahead and look at my blog called Learn Programming Stuff. I will leave an annotation at the bottom of this video here, where you can click and you will be able to read how we can find the external and the local area network IP. And I would highly recommend it. So we have created a socket, and we need to enclose this in a try and catch statement too, so we can handle eventual errors that will occur. So the next thing we want to create is the object that is going to send a message to the server. And in this case we're going to use a printWriter class which implements an output stream. And we can create that one by just saying new printWriter, and inside of the constructor we're going to set socket.getOutputStream. And then comma true. And by doing this we will be able to send a message through the socket to the server. Alright, so once we have done that, we are going to create another while loop, and we're just going to spam the server and send a message in each iteration of the loop. And we can send a message by simply calling the printline function of the printWriter, and just type in whatever string we want, and it will be sent to the server. So let's just see if this works by first starting the server. And you can see nothing happens yet, so we're going to start the client too. And now a connection should be made, and it should just spam a message to the server. And as you can see, it does exactly that, so it works as expected. Now this is not really a nice way to do it, since we just spam the same message all the time. So let's just allow the user to put a message that he chooses himself. So I'm just going to create, inside of the print line statement, I'm just going to change it to return a string from the yay_option_pane.showInputs dialog class, which will allow the user to enter the message that they want to send. Alright, so let's go ahead and run the server and the client again, and we are just going to see if it works as expected. So let's just put in a random message, for example, hello server, and you can see that it is sent to the server, and we can just keep on writing whatever we want and it will be sent. That was all that we're going to cover in this video. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something from it. There will be more videos about this subject soon, and we will also create a project where we create a simple chat application which allows multiple users to talk to each other. And if you want to gain deeper knowledge, I would highly recommend you to subscribe to my blog called Learn Programming Stuff. And there I'm posting, and I will post more articles about certain aspects of programming. For example, latest post is about networking and how you can find your local IP and your external IP. and also in which kind of situations you would use them. And I'm going to leave an annotation at the bottom of this video, and I'm also going to leave it in the description. And if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel, give this a thumbs up, and subscribe to my blog if you're interested in more detailed explanations and more harder subjects. Hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.